Welcome, 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 my lovely sisters and brothers. Thank you so much for being part of this live book reading. Sorry, I thought I had it off. Um, Welcome again, lovely sisters and lovely brothers. Welcome to this live book reading. And as you all can see, the coming days we are going through another interesting topic. Real estate Earth. And this is from the Wes Penry papers, the first level of learning part 2. It is in book version. And I just take things out because it's a long chapter from what I can see. And let us dive into this. But the thing that I want to say here is that indeed the ones whom are pulling the strings here in this world are indeed seeing this world as a real estate. So let us start, and I will take out the things of which I am guided to take out, because I think it is almost 50 pages. Yeah, it is big. 20. Yeah, it's around about 50 pages, so this is quite long. Earth as Real Estate Part 1. It is paper 22 of the Wes Penry papers, first level of learning. You can download these for free from the Wes Penry website links that are placed in the text box, as well as from the other website links mentioned. All biological life is seeded. Everything that has a biological form has been designed, and I want to say what is left of it, because more and more you can question if things are to be named as such. The butterfly, the cockroach, the bird, the lion, the moth, the snake, humans, etc. Except for the fatalists, who may think that all came to being by accident and evolution. Most people agree too that life was designed, despite different religions or beliefs. Most religions, sects, cults, and free thinkers believe there is a divine design to all life, on Earth and in the universe. The question is, why do so many people believe in a huge in in a huge man with a long white beard? Because that is how God is being picturized in this world. And has depicted themselves in the minds of human beings. All right, the ultimate design of this universe and beyond is created by all that is, or also known as Source. Something we have discussed in earlier papers, and Source then created a semi-hierarchy of appointed creator GODs. And I say semi because it is not a strict hierarchy, as in you take order from me and you are in charge of them over there. And that is how it is done around here. So we are facing here on Earth a hierarchical structure that is in actuality only serving the one that is really pulling the strings here on Earth. So let us find out more. And that is how it's done around here. It is rather a hierarchy of knowledge and the ability to create matter out of light, how to be masters in creating holographic illusions and manipulating DNA, which is not limited to the human body, but continue spiraling out across universes. Thus, everything that has a biological form has been designed. And what I say from what is left biological, because we need to question even that. Due to the fact that we now know that the chemtrailings are also containing nanobots. Very little has evolved in the manner so-called Dr. Charles Darwin taught us. Humans, for example, have looked the same since we were last genetically manipulated by the Syrian Anunnaki. The elephant did not evolve out of the mammoth and the mastodon or the bird from the dinosaur. They are different creations altogether. And life did not spring out of nothing. Nothing in this construct is random. It is all being built and seeded with a purpose in mind. In our case, like mentioned many times before, the purpose is the living library. Earth's original creators wanted to build life on this planet. Both plant, animal, and human life, which would be a mix of biological life from hundreds, if not thousands, of planets and star systems around the cosmos. From our perspective, we can look at it as a giant library where species from near and far can come and study how biological life forms interact and evolve as body, mind, spirit. It is a great experiment, and the creator GODs are very determined to protect their library to the best of their abilities. So many of these creator GODs, in a joint effort with other alien species, are still watching us and our development today, as we have built this civilization, so-called civilization, based on the knowledge we gained in the far past. However, in our foolishness, we could more or less have blown ourselves up hundreds of times the last 50 years or so. But these old creator GODs who watch but do not want to interfere with our development make sure we are not destroying ourselves, and in particular this planet. This is why we see UFOs around man-made reactor blown-ups like the one in Japan in the earlier part of 2011. This is also why we hear of UFOs who have destroyed missiles which have been sent off but stopped mysteriously halfway to the target. Creating a civilization like ours was part of the original plan and a part of a normal development on any life-bearing world. There is a time in the development of most intelligent species where they, as adolescents, are playing with their toys. And almost destroy themselves and their world in the process. Well, this is in actuality we are still in, because in many ways we are creating things of which we do not know the short-term consequences as well as the long-term consequences of. However, like a separate human grows from adolescence to adulthood, so should we as a species before we blow ourselves up. This is a critical stage in our development, and we as human species have been usually asleep during this critical process and let the most destructive adolescents play with the most dangerous tools. Therefore, we who have grown up past this point since long need to help the teenagers, most of the population, to grow up as well. So ETs have told the highest level of governments that if we want assistance, we need to disarm ourselves and no weapons in space. When the government or the media are using the words between quotation marks atomic energy or nuclear energy, they are often code words for ETs, and Obama and others before him are manipulated behind the scenes by those ETs and humans who are not willing to give the power back to the people. So we are in many wars in that sense, because we are also dealing with people who indeed do not want to give up their power. They know about this and have actively destroyed underground ET bases, the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico being just one example. UFOs who have entered our reality have been shut down cold-bloodedly, and if any survivors, they have either been killed or captured. All this is and has been happening behind the scenes for a far too long time. And it is being mentioned in the media all the time, but it is coded by using terms as so-called atomic energy, nuclear energy / power, the global elite or elite who know how to read the Bible, read it very differently than the rest of the people. Yes, of course they do, because they are in contact with the original writer, better said author of the Bible, whom is the false god of this world, known as Marduk. And most of the Elites are descendants of Marduk bloodline. For them, the media are delivering encoded news, and they know how to read between the lines. And this is exactly what we need to do. We need to train ourselves how to read between the lines of all the carefully and deliberately crafted messages the talking heads are giving to us. A news reporter is telling a story, but the average Joe is hearing one thing, while Mr. Rothschild is hearing another. You have to be initiated to get the real message. However, we must remember that not all ETs come from outer space. We have ET species living beneath our feet too, and they are more likely the ones who are concerned about our behavior. So let us dive into this whole idea of free will zone. The original creator, GODs, worked with an aspect of consciousness called light and were carefully guarding it. Light is information, and it is also spirit. These guardians of light worked with and for the prime creator in an effort to expand consciousness by creating experiments of probabilities which consciousness could experience and expand itself, and thus also expand all that is. The prime creator These highly evolved beings knew what can be done with light, and their plans were carefully orchestrated. And it was decided when they were going to go into effect. So the plan for Earth was to be an exchange center of information for all the different galactic systems. Everything was very carefully planned, and some of these creator GODs once incarnated here on Earth as a part of this plan to light candles in the dark and eventually defeat the darkness by being able to emit and transmit high frequencies of light. So the Pleiadians have said, and these are the Pleiadians whom are working with Barbara Marciniak, the Pleiadians have said over and over that we humans must be lighthouses in the dark ocean and shine light into the darkness. How do we shine light? By also passing on to one another information that can help us to remember, and in remembering whom we are, and that can help us to get a clearer understanding of what is truly happening on Earth and what are the scripts that are being played out, and what is in actuality the main script that is being played out here on Earth. These incarnated creator GODs who have been here and lived through all this darkness in human bodies have not given up. Some are still here and their time is now. This is what we are, and this is what we are here to do. Light gives information without even having to use words, while darkness withholds information or distorts information or twists information. With this in mind, it is easier to see who in this otherwise complicated game is. So once you start traveling outside the third density realm, you will still keep this in mind. Darkness keeps you disinformed and ignorant. And this is why we see the rise of darkness. This is also one of the reasons why information, when a crucial point of awakening amongst humans is reached or is reaching, all of a sudden there is this trick of disinformation, censorship, because censorship is nothing new. It's a trick that is being used many times. Burning of information, such as important books, is in actuality the forerunner of the digital censorship that we are now in. So why is this being done? Because the ruling power and the ruling powers that be do not want to have too many people waken up. So now we get to understand why censorship is here, why all of a sudden in 2020 we saw this ridiculousness of fact-checking and whatever that they instigated to keep the real information away from us. And distorting information is also ancient old. So remember, darkness keeps you disinformed and ignorant, and light keeps you informed. If someone wants to expand by becoming more light, by retrieving more information, and the information the person wants is being withheld from him or her, The one who withheld is holding on to darkness. Very soon, times will change drastically, and everything that was hidden will come to the surface and be shown to the world in ratio to how much light will be spread and how fast it will travel. The darkness, which has been so prominent here on earth for so long, will no longer prevail. It is already starting to happen, and we see it already happening. Just look at what is being revealed right now in all walks of life. These are not the times when it is an easy task to hold on to secrets. They will reveal themselves. According to the original plan, the creator gods act like so-called parents for what they create. Earth, like so many other planets in the free will universe, and others are real estate and meant to be owned by the creator gods who seeded them. But real estate can easily change stewardship over time through wars, invasions, and any other reason for that matter. But if everything goes per plan, the so-called parents let their children grow up while guarding them until they are adults and can take over the real estate. Each team of creator gods are seeding more than one planet at a time, and because time in the universe is not linear, it can on one level all be done simultaneously. There have been many different gods interfering with the human DNA during long epochs, and many claim stewardship over Earth. So this also creates battles among those groups who have planted some of their genetics also into the human. And now, from what I came to understand, there are indeed several species whom are in a battle over who gets a certain percentage of Earth and its inhabitants. There will be those who will come here presenting themselves as so-called helpers and saviors of this world. Well, we now do know that there are no saviors. The only one who can save us is ourselves. We are the only ones who can save us. People will embrace them and think they are wonderful and powerful gods. Look what they can do when everything is going downhill on the planet and an alien race is coming down to offer a solution. Many will swallow the bait without seeing the bigger picture. All they are doing is to create another new form of control. The old world order goes out the window to make space for a new world order. Peace and prosperity is so-called offered. Some will say they are staying here as long as it takes for humankind to grow up and be self-sufficient and then leave. This is when it is so important to understand our own past, where we come from, who has been stewarding us, and for what purpose. The same creator gods who created all these wars and chaos now come back and tell us they have cleaned up their act and can help us because they feel so-called responsible for us. Do they? Well, there responsibility is, of course, something to question. There will be, and already is, a gigantic marketing program to introduce the return of the GODs, and it is all very cleverly done. Once they come, and after they have so-called cleaned up, here they will reign in peace for a while. But whose peace? And what is peace in their understanding? Because we have a different understanding of words such as peace than they do. But knowing their history, we will soon find ourselves in a highly technological, and here comes it, tyrannical environment. And look around us, lovely sisters and brothers. What are we seeing? A rise of tyranny, and everything becomes more psychopathic, much worse than the one we experience now. So do not get fooled. And this is also one of the reasons I am passing you this information onto you, so that you get an in-depth understanding of what is truly going on. And of course, it is all up to you to do something with this information or not. And this is also why I constantly say ponder upon it, meditate upon it, think about it, philosophize on it, use your spirit in this whole process, and ask your spirit to help you to get more understanding and clarification. Instead of giving any more power away to the GODs who put us in this mess in the first place, we need to work on creating our own planetary sphere, our own Earth. So we need to take it back before we leave it one day and return to our spirit home. If we are to use the working model which Wes Penry introduced in the first book of this first level of learning Wes Penry papers, as a base for how the multiverse operates. We understand that just as thoughts travel on Earth, there are highways on which thought can be directed across the cosmic waters. So we need to dance between frequencies, knowing what we want, and rest assured that we get it. The power is within us, not with any landing alien force. And this is something indeed we need to realize. The power is in us. We do not some sort of species who claims to be a savior. We don't need all of that. We are powerful human beings. We have 12 strands of DNA. Unfortunately, 10 of them are locked down, but it doesn't mean that we are still incredible, powerful human beings. But we need to use this power for the sake of goodness, not with any landing alien force. So please remember this when things start heating up, that we are powerful beings ourselves. All right. There are many different types of universes that were created with different purposes in mind. Even different galaxies have different purposes. We live in a free will universe, which means everything goes. All aspects of consciousness have gathered here to have a totally, so to say, wild experience in an effort to learn as much as possible. You can do anything you like, but there are consequences. And these consequences are the learning lessons. For some, it takes longer to learn, and all of us suffer to a greater or lesser degree based on our life choices. This too is set up so that energies meet energies and bounce back to the instigator of thought and action slash inaction. This is how energies work here. So if we look at it objectively, it can be a great system for the prime creator to experience itself. The multitude of experience are extremely fast-paced. Here we affect each other because that is how consciousness experiences itself. In another universe, everybody may be absolutely free, be on their own and serve no purpose to anybody else. In this free will zone, everything is interlocking with everything else. The Pleiadians put it this way. Your purpose is to carry information and by carrying it to make the information accessible to others by frequency. Information is light, light is information. The more you become informed, the more you alter your frequency. You are electromagnetic creatures, and everything that you are, you broadcast to everyone else. So that is why it is of great importance to do self-education and to inform yourselves. The more you do, the more you override all the distortions and misinformation in yourself, and then the real information can come into you. And this is something that you as light spread out in your environment. And so then you do a great job for those around you. And so you help in that sense to touch something in your fellow brother, sister, in such a way that they also start to become curious and start asking questions about things. And then you get this, what is called domino effect, this 100th monkey effect. Your assignment is to carry information and to evolve yourself to the highest capability within the human form. When you do this, you cannot help but affect multitudes. Everything you come in contact with is affected by your vibration. So again, very important to do self-education and to have yourselves informed. Free will versus predestiny. When we talk about free will, we cannot discuss it in any length without also bringing up predestiny. We need to do so because in some religions, the followers believe that everything is predestined. Even in secular groups, people believe everything is predestined. There is even something called fatalism, when everything is fated and there is no way around it. Yesterday, I happened to see a bumper sticker on the car in front of me saying, even those who believe everything is predestined look for cars before they cross the street. That's quite profound. The truth is that it is a little bit of both. In an earlier paper, we discussed what is happening between lives, how we set new goals for what we perceive to be the next lifetime. Although from a higher perspective, all lifetimes are simultaneous. Whom we want to meet, what we want to do, and so on. When we incarnate to a certain time, we meet with our so-called tribe or so-called soul group. We have a certain tribe we meet with when we are children and adolescents, and another tribe when we pass our 20s, etc. Sometimes one or two members of the childhood tribe stay with us throughout our lifetime, but that is not too common. Of course, your immediate family usually does. We could say that predestiny is the overall experience that we have decided upon before incarnation. But within the framework of these um, happenstance, we are free to do whatever we want to do. We can even change the whole setup we planned out between lives if we choose to, while incarnated, and do something completely different. That is free will. Although it is and has become limited in this construct to keep us under control. Well, better said, if we look closely around us and observe this world from underneath a magnifier, we can see that the ruling powers are doing their uttermost best to take away free will away from us. Um, And this is why we see the creation of so many laws the last 20 years. Um, but those who say that you have to do this or have to do that because it is predestined imply that there is no free will whatsoever, and that is false. Free will is a predominant factor. Let's say that when a person is 25 years, 2 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days old, he is predestined to meet his life partner at a party because that is what the two have decided upon before they incarnated. However, in the last minute, he decides that he is too tired to go and he stays home instead. This means the predestined meeting never happens as planned, and all he had to do was to decide not to go. As easy as that. The woman may have gone to the party, though, but felt that something was missing and left early. Usually, meetings like these are predestined to happen due to correlation and in accordance with astrological signs, and important events in a person's life are often planned under a certain astrological tuning to have the most powerful effects. In our example, as it turned out, the young man blew it for any reason, and let's say that he instead meets with the lady 3 years later in another space and time. They may still get married, but the astrological signs are different, and they may or may not achieve exactly what had been planned. You can plan anything you like between lives, but there is always the unknown factor. In fact, a big unknown factor called free will, which may spoil it or lead you in another uh, into another situation or experience, sometimes even more desirable as it turns out direction. So predestiny is something set into the perceived future, while free will is always the choice in the present moment. Looking at it this way, you can easily see which one is predominant. So let us revisit Old Egypt dash an era of magic and multidimensionality. I am taking the reader on a multidimensional tour in this paper, explaining things in a more non-linear time frame to get the reader used to this kind of thinking. Hence, I now want to take you back to Old Egypt for a while. Egypt plays a huge role in our human history, more than we think so, and more than so far is being spoken of and told to us. So the Egyptian people have always been, in certain terms, quite different from people from the rest of the world. They have a history that is pretty rich in many ways, not the least because of alien presence and influences on their society. In previous papers, I have described in details Sitchin's translations and interpretations of the Sumerian cuneiform and tablets describing the Anunnakis' involvement in the building of Egypt and cultures in many other parts of the world. Because there are thankfully many brothers and sisters waking up in seeing that there are correlations to, for instance, old buildings. Why is it that the pyramids in South America are almost a replica of the ones in Egypt? In subsequent papers, I will continue discussing other alien influences coinciding with the Anunnaki timeline here on Earth. These alien civilizations affected the Egyptian culture enormously, of course, and also the people, not only regarding the cultural part, but also from a genetic aspect, with a lot of interbreeding and genetic engineering that is still going on unto the day of today. This has made the Egyptians quite a psychic people and in some sense a bit more multidimensional in their thinking than much of the rest of the world. Therefore, it is interesting to watch what happened in Egypt earlier this year, and then this year is 2011, because this is in actuality quite old, this information, but still valuable. With the uproar against the sitting regime and how it was done, what we are seeing at a higher level is timelines merging. And this is important information to hear, because this is something we see nowadays also being played out with everything that happens between Russia, Ukraine, and everything that is happening in the Middle East. There's also something called merging of timelines. So to set the stage for the next move of the agenda. This incident is not the first, but it is a bigger one, and we will see more of timelines coming together and meeting at an apex. And this is the time that we are seeing and are in. If you really start to dive in things, then you can ask yourself the question to your spirit, am I also seeing here a merging of timelines in all the things that are being played out in, for instance, the Middle East? merging timelines means also setting the stage for the next rollout of the agenda that is related to the timeline that eventually is coming into motion by the merging of several timelines into one timeline. When the gods were interacting with us, especially those with questionable reputation, to say the least, knowledge was passed on through the mystery schools. So this is also why it is of importance to also dive into things as Freemasonry, because it gives us another source of information to understand the things. And yes, there are a lot of us fellows who say, don't do this, and especially the ones who are staying stuck to the Bible, they say, don't do this because it's dark and this and that. But it is a good thing to do. Keep distance. Don't have yourselves too much intertwined with the information, but see it as information that can help you to understand the agendas that are being played out by all these bloodlines that are here on earth and all the factions that are also working in togetherness with the powers that be. It often took many lifetimes for the human initiates, often royalties, whom are Anunnaki hybrids, first or second generation, trained within the priesthoods to open their eyes to other realities. The GODs trained them to reincarnate into certain families and remember who they were. So the mothers and fathers knew who was going to incarnate into the baby body before the baby was born, because they dreamed about it. With training, they learned to see and interpret different realities. This concept was called the eyes of Horus, the third eye of Horus. And this comes also, this information, from the Voyagers Part 2, which was written by A. Dean, because they could look into many different worlds, the world of waking and of sleeping, the world of death and that of dreaming. And this comes from the Pleiadians who work with Marciniak, and this is from the book Bringers of the Dawn. What some of the gods did and still are doing, which they excluded from teaching their human students because they did not want us to be a threat to them or in competition, was, that when their current body either grew old, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years old, or even millions, got fatally wounded in battle or accident, or got seriously ill, they could quickly vacate that body and immediately incarnate into another cloned version of themselves and continue their lives without passing the between lives area, which I tend to believe is only assigned for us ignorant 3D soul fragments. The between lives area is also the area where they fool you into this false idea that you have karma and that you need to go back again to earth to finish that karma. The between lives area is also the area of the soul recycling center. These GODs did not do so casually, though, because each clone is always a little bit less powerful and efficient than the previous one. But apparently they were afraid to die the natural way. There is a reason for this, which I will bring up in the second level of the papers. Our original strands of DNA, which we are now reawakening, are seemingly of a higher order and can take us higher up on the echelons of the multiversal ladder than they can the Anunnaki. So this already is saying that we are in actuality beings that can stand above the Anunnaki, yeah, because we have spirit and they lack spirit. We are talking about 11 strands versus 12 strands of DNA. Some Anunnaki made a choice a very long time ago, which they regret today. This is also particularly interesting because this knowledge has been passed on down the generations of certain families through mystery schools and secret societies to present time. Today's royal families and global elite families do the same thing. Soul fragments incarnate over and over into the same genetic line, having full memory of who they are. Interesting enough, this doesn't necessarily make today's global elite particularly spiritually inclined. Yes, they know they are soul fragments occupying a biomind, but they do not always see the bigger picture beyond their own accomplishments and designed tasks. However, I should add that some of them do. There are those who know who they are and why they do what they are doing. Although we may look at them as evil because of the effects they create, there's certainly a bigger picture. That most people miss. Those who have read the Hidden Hand article may understand this concept better. So a few beings incarnated over and over on this planet to be our catalysts. By doing horrendous deeds, they are also sacrificing themselves by inducing very difficult karma upon themselves. And they are doing this to make us wake up. We are blaming them for what they do instead of understanding that the magnitude of darkness put upon us by these people is in direct ratio to our own inefficiency, negligence, and inability to wake up and complete the task we are here to do. But the real truth of the matter is that these Syrians need to counteract their dark deeds with good deeds to maintain a balance necessary for them to operate using energy. This is why the most so-called generous philanthropists are also often the darkest people. This is why the most so-called generous philanthropists are also often the darkest people. Well, look at Billy Yates, I would say. He is a very dark person. And the same for all those whom are running organizations as Google and DARPA. They are very dark. Never before have so many people lived on Earth as in these times. We need the numbers to be able to pull Earth through her so-called birth pain and transfer us to a higher frequency. It is our combined effort that will make this happen. Thus, these 7 billion people plus that will live on this planet between 2012 and now, not everybody will be able to transform, and it is not meant to be, but everybody is contributing with their own frequency, wittingly or unwittingly, to make this happen. Still, all these people know that they were born into this specific time because of what is transpiring. Some just want to ride the wave, so to say, and have fun, or a certain experience gaining, while others are serious about what they um, while others are serious about where they want to go. The will check out and leave their bodies when it is getting tough. And that is something they had planned before they were even born. To those, let's send our gratitude for being here with us, who have planned to stay for helping us on our journey. It is all perfectly fine, but we still need more people waking up to increase the overall frequency. We literally need to shed light into the darkness by being ourselves and affecting our environment, creating the ripple effect we discussed earlier. According to the Pleiadians, many well-known people from the past choose to come back at this particular time to participate in the energy work. I am slowly taking you back in time here, inserting dialogues that are multidimensional in nature for a reason, which will be apparent before you have read this paper until the end. And Egypt has had such a profound effect on humanity, both positively as well as negatively, that we need to grab a handful here and a handful there of their history and place it in present time to understand our current path and what is happening to us today in this world. By understanding certain sequences of the past, we will make the transition easier for those who want to follow. The first thing that comes to mind if I say Egypt is the pyramids. Of course, there are pyramids found in all different places on Earth, and there are those buried deep in the jungles, overgrown with layers of vegetations. But the most famous ones are the Egyptian pyramids. And many pyramids are now being discovered due to certain technologies in which they can far more easy, with more ease, find these pyramids, which can be of great help, of course, to understand our history, because each and every pyramid contains history. So the more pyramids are being discovered through certain technology, so in that sense, technology can help us, the more new information comes up that can help us to get a new level of understanding of our history, of ourselves and this earth. Yeah, all right. The pyramid structure and what it does. We want to be clear that pyramids are not something that originates with the global elite just because it is on the back of the $1 bill. Albeit the elite know the power of the pyramid and it also symbolizes whom they are working for. And the eye that we see on the $1 bill is the eye of Marduk, the so-called god of this world. I just want to demonize pyramids right away because for many people who have studied the global elite and their plans see pyramids as something only related to them and therefore as evil. The universe we live in is built around the language of light. Light actually has geometric forms like circles, squares, rectangles, pyramids, triangles, spirals, lines, pentagons, etc. These who have this knowledge, better said, those who have this knowledge know the power of geometry and the shape of the pyramid. It is as old as the universe because it has been present as long as there has been light. But the founders used the pyramid shape alongside many other geometric shapes already when they started seeding the universe. These creator GODs are still around in pure consciousness and are here to help us, emitting tremendous energy of love and light. We humans have 144,000 seals of energy that will eventually be infused within our being. This entire symbolic language structure will be infused through our being. So the pyramids on this planet are primary locator points and throughout cosmos represent a great unity of consciousness. They are the structure of perfection and very difficult to create. This structure gathers energy from Earth and sends it outward. They have also been a sighting point for landing of alien spacecraft, especially when they arrive from other dimensions and densities. When we think of pyramids, we think of them as being built during a certain time period, and that they filled some kind of purpose at that time for the builders. And that the Great Pyramid was built around 2600 BC. That may be true on one level, but if we look at it from a more multi-dimensional view, we could picture the pyramids being built simultaneously at different points in vertical time and inserted onto the planet, filling different purposes at different times. According to the Guardian Alliance, for example, the Great Pyramid was restored in 5540 BCE, and this is coming from the Voyagers Book 2, written by A. Dean. We know from Sitchin's work that the Anunnaki were the builders at one time, but we also know from the Ra material that the Ra Confederacy, the Ra Collective, also were the builders. The Pleiadians refer to this multidimensional concept as well in one of their winter lectures of 2011, including the original seeders of this planet as an addition to the mix. In fact, the pyramids on another level are a measure of local and planetary consciousness working as a chronometer, so to say, telling inter and multidimensional creator GODs where the overall level of consciousness is, um, and how an upcoming harvest would plan out for humanity. Egypt is not the only country having these measuring devices built into the pyramids. They are all over the place, and they fill this same purpose on one level built by the same beings. When a certain consciousness is reached, it sends out a signal through time so that this consciousness can be balanced. Some of the, between quotation marks, true pharaohs of Egypt who were of higher consciousness said that the pyramids were ancient even before they began. Um, it is obvious that the pyramids were built to survive through time and not only serve a purpose for a short period. We also learn from the same Pleiadian lecture um, that long ago there were pharaohs who were taught by ETs how to pay attention to time inside their mind, and when something went off in another time, like today, they could respond from their present, between brackets our past, to influence the future. As all time is simultaneous and no one really dies, they knew how to work through time and balance things out within the framework of their own capacity through the pyramids. In other words, they did not take precautions back then in case something happens in future. They are there now in our past, which is their present, and able to respond to what, for example, happened in Egypt a few months ago from this writing. This is a very interesting and accurate way of looking at multidimensionality. So if you can picture this and can think with it, you can grasp the concept of how multi dash D works. As you may know, we do have proof there are pyramids built on other planets as well, such as Mars. Such NASA pictures are all over the internet. This is telling us that for somebody, pyramids are pretty important. They have been used for initiation, energy announcers, tombs. Later on, when the dynasties were declining and consciousness declined as well, lighthouses, so to say, for travelers through time and space, unity of consciousness, and anchor points in time, teleportation, and so-called ascension, among other things. So they are also an encapsulation of the language of light, a code for building, just like a hammer can be used for different things in different hands. So the Great Pyramid in particular could be said to be another anchor of energy. Time can be compared to a container where consciousness can express itself, as we have discussed so far. Time as a linear concept is a local custom and is not applicable outside the realm of our matrix. Therefore, if we look at the Great Pyramid as a time container, being multidimensional in concept, time in this container is not linear. Here timelines merge, parallel timelines that have to do with Earth or other versions of Earth. This is why a person may enter certain points within the pyramids that work like apexes for timeline energy, and the visitor may have a very profound multidimensional experience. Those who have taken ayahuasca or other psychedelics have some grasp of multidimensionality, being in two or more realities/dimensions simultaneously. This was well known by the ancients. Now we can see how powerful the pyramid structure is and how it can be used for so many incredible things. Still here on Earth, almost nobody knows what they are, why they are here, and when and by whom they were built, and how they were built also. Timeline-wise, in the perspective of the linear and the bloodlines from where the current version of humanity originates, it goes back around 500,000 years on this planet, which brings us back to the time when the Anunnaki arrived. So the next time in part 2, I will start with the subtopic titled as An Attractive Real Estate dash the God's Return. All right. I think this is an interesting chapter in which we can get a lot of valuable information to get a deeper understanding of the things that are happening, because there are so many mergings going on with parallel timelines and other timelines. We have also the play out of the singularity and metaverse. We have also played out the coming of Marduk/Jesus, and so on. So there are so many things going on. And again, this is why I also hand you over this information, so that you can start questioning things and asking your spirit also to have answers on your questions and to clarify the information that is handed to you. So the next time I will go into the next part of this chapter. I think it will be 4 parts, and I will be guided to the parts that are of the most interesting for us nowadays to understand the agendas. All right, thank you so much for tuning in through Facebook, through Rumble, and through YouTube, and through the mobile platforms of all these platforms. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening along, and I truly and sincerely hope that this information raise questions in you, that you start ponder upon things that are happening around you, and that it also can help you in seeing the steps that you have to do for the coming period in your life. All right. Thank you so much. Again, I wish you all a beautiful day filled with a lot of love and joy, revelations and truth, wisdom and knowledge, all revealed to you by your own spirit. And let us listen to a short piece of music known as Floating Garden, created by Ben Sound. I see you next time with a new life book reading. Again, thank you so much and have a great, joyful, loving day.